Yeah, well, let's get ready to jump into this matchup here. Corey playing Ahmed, two local guys, two great players. Fighting for a spot in the cut. I think we have Corey here at 15, and Ahmed just dropped his last two games in the last round, so he's down at 12. So, both of these guys looking to sweep this round, trying to get into that top 8 for sure.
Yeah.
Ahmed playing Kate, a runner he's played for a long time now. Really good with it, really competent with it. We saw him at Tulsa, in the finals.
Did great.
Corey bringing industrial genomics.
Yeah.
Something he's been really hyped about for the last few weeks. Breaker Bay grid, he thinks really helps put this over the top. And I've played it against him numerous times now, and it is quite a slog.
Yeah.
It is rough to play against that deck.
And for those of you who don't know Corey is one of the evil geniuses behind most of the Jinteki decks in our meta.
Yeah.
I know Ben has had him on the PeachHack channel before. I can't remember if it was his Harmony MedTech deck or something else, but Corey, very creative deck builder with Jinteki. And I will tell you, the tools that Genomics have gotten lately between Crick, between Blacklist that I know he's packing.
Huge.
I mean, he knows what he's doing with this deck, and it hoses a lot of the best decks on the runner side in the format. Very exciting to see this.
Yeah, definitely the guy I go to first as a Jinteki player when I'm play testing and setting stuff up. But jumping right into it, Corey goes ahead and does the pretty typical IG,
Getting that archives
which
loaded.
is install Jackson and no ice and just click Jackson twice so he can start loading archives.
Now the question
and that's
is,
terrifying.
Am I one shock in archives or am I three shock in archives? We don't know, but there's only one way to find out.
Or am I flooded and I'm just messing with you, right?
We'll find out
know.
together.
But Ahmed, playing it safe, playing it slow like he does. Diesel, sure gamble, Astrolabe, same old thing. Just building up his economy, getting ready to go, 4 or 5 turns from now.
Now, I think a couple of the key cards in this matchup, Ahmed, I know the card that Corey is most afraid of in conversations I've had is Imp. Ahmed is not playing Imp today, so I think this is going to be a very interesting back and forth to see how Ahmed uses his money because, Corey's going to start dropping the assets. Hostile infrastructure is going to hit the board, and he's going to have some really tough decisions of where to spend his money, when to take net damage, and when to draw up and when to build and when to get aggressive.
Yeah, and I think also important to note, Ahmed's barrier breaker here is the Lady.
Yeah,
and that's going to be really important later in the game. Corey has, I think, 2 of Ashigaru in his deck. I'll pull the deck list here in a minute. And I just watched his last round, actually, against an Asir, who was running a similar sort of breaker list. And with Blacklist out, you can't recur that Lady, which means once you break through those first 4 subroutines of Ashigaru, you still get ended by the last one.
We see the Blacklist in hand. Maybe a little bit too early to drop that, but again, he's just banging out the assets, and the more cards that start going face down, you're going to get to the point where, like I said earlier, Ahmed's got to pick his shots, and Blacklist, it's a threatening card, but maybe the timing is not such to where you want to go after it. Again, for players who have not played against this, you look at a Sundew and say, why is there a naked Sundew on the board? But I think the trash cost is +4 on that right now.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's either 3 or 4. And that's the thing is I know Corey likes to get aggressive with that. And that's something that I sort of struggled with when I was playing this is that I wasn't really sure when to get aggressive, but Corey will go for it right away. He'll install a hostile infrastructure and a Blacklist, and he'll just leave them there. And as soon as you run one or the other, he'll res the hostile infrastructure. And between that and the trash cost, it turns off so many runners. They decide, I can't afford to lose a card and spend 5 or 6 money just to trash something.
No, that's exactly right. Now, the timing, I think, behind the Blacklist is going to be very interesting. I mean, early game, not going to hurt Ahmed that much. I mean, he's still got plenty of deck left to go and can draw all the cards he needs. There's nothing in his archive or in his heap that really makes much of a difference right now. But we're going to see as this game progresses if Corey's able to manage that between damage that Ahmed might be taking from hostile infrastructure down the line and just burning through his deck, doing what Kate does.
Yeah, and I think the strength here with Kate is that if he can get a window to Levy, maybe 10 turns from now, when it gets to that point where he's like, I want a Levy, he's got to do it right then. Because Corey will not give you more than a turn or 2. And it's something that's really strong with IG is that if you can keep that Blacklist out behind a piece of ice or have 2 Blacklists out that they have to go after, you can end the game really fast. Even if 7 points aren't scored, right? They'll just kill your deck and you won't be able to run because you'll take net damage and die.
And one of the things I'm trying to think about if I'm Ahmed, he runs Gordian Blade, he runs Atman. We know Corey with Crick is including that in the deck, and I don't know if that's the ice over archives, but I know that's what he's fishing for, if nothing else. What do you think Ahmed's best way to combat it is? I mean, there's not a lot of ice in Corey's deck. You're not going to see a lot of res dice in this game. Does it make more sense to go the Gordian Blade route, or does it make more sense to honestly just set the Ottman at 6 and say, I'm going to hit archives when I need it so I can trash these assets?
I mean, I think you have to have Ottman at 4 still, because, you can assume there are Ashigarus, right, against the Jinteki.
That's a good point.
I think it's going to be a big deal, and I think Ahmed has to know that this is going to be a long game. And so against Crick, with Gordian Blade, you just have to bite the bullet.
Yeah.
If you bite the bullet twice and get into archives, you're resetting that timer.
Yeah.
That Corey has to sort of win, and that's really important. And you just have to accept that you're going to take some net damage to do that.
So we see Ahmed has the Mimic in hand, so he can't go get it with the SMC that he's got out there. And I think kind of trying to debate what does he want to do about this Tsurugi. Okay, so Corey sends him through, takes the cards.
Ahmed's
got a fistful of them. This Astrolabe is going to put him in the cards.
Oh, wow. Those are not –
those
none
are
of
good
those
cards.
Are cards he wants to lose right now.
Yeah, this Astrolabe, it's going to be interesting. I mean, clearly this ID is going to draw you as many cards and maybe more than you even can imagine with Astrolabe on the board. It'll be interesting if it accelerates Ahmed's draw to a point where, like you said, I mean, he's got a Levy early because, he's got to play around up, and we see the fetal.
There you go. There's a perfect example. I mean, oh, wow.
Yeah, breakers and trash. And this is where Blacklist, if you can put this behind like a wraparound or something, there you go.
He brings it out naked because now here's the thing, is this gives Ahmed some information as well. He's got to assume that one of those at least is a hostile infrastructure. Yeah. So, this is going to cost, it's a 7 to trash Blacklist, maybe with another net damage. And so this turn alone, Ahmed has taken 5 net damage, right?
To your point, if both of those face down, if I'm Ahmed looking at that board, if both of those are hostile infrastructures, 2 net damage and 7 credits,
it's essentially the game.
It's rough. Yeah, the credit count's not quite there yet, but Corey's getting close. And I know, again, especially against the Shaper where he's not expecting Siphon or whatnot, I mean, Corey's perfectly happy going low on credits typically, letting you kill yourself on his servers. You can see the Res Pad campaign and Sundew. I mean, his theory about this deck is my money's going to bounce all over the place, but I'm going to have enough asset economy over time to where the curve is just going to start creeping higher and higher to where Ahmed can do less and less, and Corey just sits back and gains more and more.
Now, to the point that somebody just brought up in chat, should Ahmed have just popped that clone ship as soon as
that's a great point.
Trashed?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very critical card right now. And again, if he gets another Ashigaru, or pardon me, another Tsurugi on the board, or an Ashigaru, I mean, if your programs that he's putting in front of the Blacklist, if you can't access those and you need those, you're done.
Yeah. And so I think Ahmed here is struggling to figure out what he should be doing.
Yeah, so the Data Sucker, I mean, he's still got HQ open.
Right.
Parasite, I know he's got it in the deck. I can't see, I don't think it's in the trash yet. That may be something he digs for just to get him access to R&D.
Now, part of the reason Corey is fine leaving HQ open, I know I just saw a Shock. I think I also saw a Snare. Corey loves just holding those in hand. He doesn't drop them in archives because he knows you are already thinking they're in archives. And so he'll just hold them in hand, even with a fetal, because he just wants to deal the net damage, to tax you down, to keep you from running remotes. And
I've seen him get
really
wins
well
off of legworks into HQ where people are prepared for the snare and they say, okay, well, I'll eat 3 or maybe I'll draw up to 6. And then they hit something like double snare and shock. And then, but that's just the way Corey plays this. He's very patient with what he keeps in HQ.
And so Ahmed going searching with self-mod.
Yeah, and again, the thing that becomes complicated here is the clone ship now can't get the self-modifying code back. So if he needs to do it mid-run again, he's got to have another one in his deck that he draws.
So yeah, Atman is at 4 right now. So he's going into archives. Looks like. Oh no.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, he broke Cortex Lock and went into archives.
So I can see a shock is what he left in there. It looks like, as the face down. Yeah, and Cortex Lock's still relevant at this point in the game. I mean, I think over time, if Ahmed's memory starts filling up, I don't know whether he just overrides that or not once he draws the cricks.
Yeah, last game he had a really interesting situation against the Nasir he was playing, where he had a crick above archives and a crick above one of his blacklists. And with Nasir, it's tough because if you don't already have that breaker out and it's in the trash or something like that,
you're not seeing
you're
it.
done. And so he trashed a naked blacklist, and Corey res the one behind the crick.
And here's the hostile infrastructure that we mentioned. So again, the trash cost is lower because we've now revealed all the cards in archives, but now you're going to take damage for trashing those. So difficult decisions that Corey's putting Ahmed under. So we're trying to figure out where to run next of all these open remote targets. StimHack's not looking so good right now.
It's not looking great. Certainly not against this deck. And this is I've played Corey I think 3 or 4 times in the last week against this deck, and this is sort of the trap you get into where you're like, okay, well now I just got to use my hand as damage, as a shield.
Yeah.
And sort of just go for it and trash these assets. That's imperative that I trash this stuff. And all of a sudden you're sitting on 2 cards in your R&D and you can't levy it back.
Yeah, and he's going to take another one for the melange. And again, this is the thing, is it just burns away your turn, because every time you trash, I mean, it was cheap from a money standpoint, but now he's got to spend the rest of his turn trying to draw back up.
Yeah. And that's precisely what happens. So Corey got his 7 for melange and has made Ahmed spend an entire turn recovering from trashing melange.
So we've got Caprice. We got the Reclamation Order. I talked to him. That's a card. I love that he included that. I mean,
it made all the difference in 2 of the games I played against him.
Hostile infrastructure, snare, all the good stuff, all the nasty stuff that Ahmed's finally gotten rid of.
2 Caprices, 2 Ashes,
So Corey looking at his hand, finally puts the Kamainu in front of HQ, and there's a crick that finally enters his hand. So I'm sure he's interested in getting that so he can start to overdraw again. Oh, okay. Protects up the hostile.
Yeah, he loves to put it in front of one of his.
Okay,
in front of one
protecting
of
the
those
blacklist.
assets.
I see.
Because he knows you have to run it.
Yep.
And at this point hasn't seen the Gordian. He can't clone chip for an SMC. So unless you have that Gordian out, Crick's gonna fire, which means I just got back another blacklist, another hostile, another Sundew.
Yeah, this is tough, and I never know if I play it right, but at this point, hostile infrastructure becomes a big target for me because it really stops you from doing everything you want. And it's expensive, it's annoying, but, I think Ahmed's seeing the collateral damage of leaving it on the board, and it feels like, it's just one card at a time, but pretty soon, especially with Blacklist out, it builds up.
Now, fortunately for Ahmed, he's drawn his 3rd SMC, so he can go get that Gordian Blade.
We put the Hokusai down on archives, so we're going to make this sting a little bit more next time Ahmed tries to go.
Yeah, Corey's got 2 of them, and he likes putting them on R&D and archives, and that's it.
And he's got a fistful of agendas, but, I think he's kind of at the point in time where, Ahmed doesn't look like he's very interested in running the centrals. And this is a confusing thing. I mean, he doesn't have the breakers on board, at least as far as Ahmed thinks, because the Mimic's in the trash. He could, I think at least, I haven't seen the Parasite in the trash. I mean, he doesn't know that it's a Kamainu in front of HQ, but his best play right now would either be hit the Tsurugi, and you could Parasite that down. It looks like that may be what he's going to get. Yep. Now that makes good sense. You have to figure after this many turns, you've got to figure that Corey's got a pretty well-sculpted HQ at this point. And so I think it's very reasonable to just say, let's take the cards that he doesn't know what they are rather than the handful of snares and feely eyes.
Yeah, although that being said, Ahmed doesn't have multi-access right now in R&D. We see an R&D interface in his hand, so he's only going to be seeing one at a time here from R&D. Double-edged sword, though. The more multi-access he gets, the more vulnerable you are to a snare.
All right, so takes a look at one off R&D. Nothing there. All right, we're going to try and go after this blacklist. Crick will fire. Because Ottman is at 4, correct?
Yep, so he's not getting in with that.
All right, so Corey taking a look, see what targets he's got that he wants to bring back in. Maybe he goes to get the ice,
It's the Tsurugi over R&D.
I mean, his money is not amazing, but again, and does he take the damage? There we go. All right, stim hack down.
Yeah, I don't think Ahmed's going to miss that too much.
And again, I think the part of this deck that Ahmed may not be expecting quite yet is he's going to get towards the end of his deck. If Corey reclamation orders back in all of these blacklists to his hand, I mean, he may just catch him at a time where there's not a lot that Ahmed can do.
Yeah, and Corey's, the other sort of trademark of this deck is that it manages to keep all this money. I think its one weakness is sort of those matchups like Reyna that manage to keep it poor so it can't res all these assets, so that it can't afford to get all this stuff out. But we're seeing here, in a matchup where Corey can just sit on 10 credits because he's melanged once.
Now, Ahmed just made the play I was about to ask about of, do you take the opportunity while it's available to you to clone ship and get your Mimic back?
Because now you have an at-minute 4 that takes care of Eshigaru and Cortex Lock, right? And now you have Mimic to take care of the Sarugis and the Kamainus. Really, outside of maybe an Enigma or a Quandary or a Lotus Field, well, Lotus Field's taken care of by Admin, right? So outside of those small code gates, you're going to feel pretty safe against Jinteki here. So Ahmed just counting credits here. He's got to be feeling a little bit better now, right?
Yeah,
he's got
stabilized.
2 points on board. Corey has none. Corey's, his blacklists are up. And he doesn't. The only economy he has on board is a pad campaign. So if Ahmed can get out that RDI, perhaps, start thinking about making some attacking runs, looking for agendas now.
Yeah, and the biggest thing that takes so much skill to play this matchup. I mean, Ahmed's played plenty of drawn-out, long slogs. Certainly, you saw it last weekend against a lot of replicating perfection decks. But I feel like this industrial genomics deck, I mean, it's an even longer slog in some cases. I look at the board and I think Ahmed's got 2 points scored. Corey hasn't scored any. He's doing fine. And but, at the same point in time, this is a much longer game than you're used to playing, and you try to kind of figure out, okay, when do I need to hit the gas and try to score versus when do I need to just survive and react to what Corey's doing?
Well, and part of that is the pressure of playing in this round 5 of a Swiss turn of regionals.
Absolutely.
You're both trying to make the cut. This is sort of a must-win game. You've got 60 minutes to play 2 games.
That's right.
And IG does not want you to do that.
No, it does not.
And so that's probably a factor that's going to come up maybe in their second game. We'll see what happens here.
Wow, second hostile up.
Yeah,
wow.
That's big. And Corey just clarifying that he wants to res the Sundew to make the money, obviously. Ahmed's fine with it. Classy player, Ahmed.
Yeah, so again, you mentioned this earlier, Josh. It's you kind of run into something to say, is this a threat? And then he brings up the hostile infrastructure,
and all of a sudden it is a threat.
Yeah,
even if it's an upgrade or a pad campaign.
So leaves the Ash there. Doesn't want to take the 2 net damage and pay a boatload to trash, which I cannot fault Ahmed for.
And he draws into a lucky find. So Ahmed's going to be feeling good about the economy. Frankly, there's still not another blacklist out, so he's in pretty good shape.
Yeah,
but he's got to sort of finish his rig and make sure that he's ready for late game. When it gets to that point.
One of my favorite plays that you'll see, you saw the Ash that's out there in the open. Corey, if he's able to wear down your deck to the point where you can't get cards, like if he keeps the blacklist out there, he will just put a naked Ash out there and start to score off of that.
Because
the thesis being, you can't afford to trash it, either from money or cards with all the hostile infrastructures, and if you don't trash Ash, you can't access the agenda that's under it. It's a very cool play.
So Ahmed installs prepaid, clicks to play Lucky Find.
Yep. So let me ask you this. I mean, you don't have Blacklist out. You've got Levy that I think well, is it in the trash?
I think I saw it in hand.
Okay. Do you go ahead and Levy now?
I think if you're more than halfway through your deck, yeah, you do.
I mean, it seems crazy.
He's got a bunch of economy in his heap. We've seen the legwork. We've seen 2 Maker's Eyes now thrown in the heap. I think you have to consider it. But he's going to play the clone ship here. Load Katie.
I know I don't think he has Ahmed doesn't have Scavenge in his deck, so Atman is at the strength he's at. And so, it's one of those, you haven't seen a ton of ice. If there's something that Corey can present, I was playing Corey last night. I was at the end of my max deck, and he puts Kumainu in front of Blacklist. So I either run through, I lose the Levy in my hand, and I can't access it, and then if I use my Eater to break it and protect myself, then I can't access the blacklist.
Right.
So, again, Corey, he's got a lot of different looks at this deck and a lot of different ways to beat you.
Now, interestingly enough, we just saw him draw Hades Fragment. Really big in this deck, too, because it allows you to recycle those cards that you might just be using in IG as face-down archives cards.
That's right.
Things like pad campaigns that you're okay putting away, or snares where you're okay sending them to archives because you can get them back now and they're threats again.
And it's tough because I've always said, the biggest weakness I look at for industrial genomics is the fact that at some point you either have to kill the runner or you have to figure out a way to score out. Now, you see, Corey's still on 0 points.
Right.
So at some point, if you can't get the kill, you still have to find a way to win. Now, replicating perfection can win very easily. Industrial genomics, I don't feel like has the same power level or ability to consistently close a game out by scoring. So, you've got to be pretty confident in your ability to set up the kill for the runner. Now he's showing Ahmed the card that he's accessed. I think we've got 4 face-down cards. He's looking at a Caprice. Okay, so Ahmed trashes.
Ahmed trashes it and will take 2 net damage for that.
This is where
and that's the judgment call where you have to say, is this worth it? And I don't know how much Ahmed has played against stuff like this. I don't think I trashed that Caprice, honestly. Like, I think you have a better shot at winning that side game to get in, wherever it is you're trying to go than it is, losing an RDI and a legwork to it.
Yeah, and this is the tough part. I mean, usually, and again, I don't know if my strategy is correct because this is it can be a confusing ID to play against, but I trash the hostile infrastructures as early as I can because I know what the late game looks like. I've played this matchup enough to where I know that if I leave these things on the board, I am going to get wrecked late game, and that every run is going to, frankly, present a really bad choice for me.
Yeah. And so that's the thing is Ahmed, his strategy, I think, just has to be waited out, force Corey to try and score and hit that because, multi-access is dangerous.
Yeah.
There are snares, there are shocks. And so he's probably okay losing those cards here to trash Caprice.
So I think we're parasiting the Tsurugi. Is that what's going on here?
Yeah, looks that way. So now it's gone again. But see, on the other hand, he keeps running back into R&D and trying to access, so I feel like he wants the RDI.
And one thing to note, Parasite, when it trashes, that does not fire hostile infrastructure because it reduces the strength. It's not the runner trashing a card, so just wanted to clarify that. It's a little bit different reading on the cards.
I was hoping we could get, Pacers Edward Kim against IG.
Right.
And then he has to seriously choose whether or not he's going to trash that program every turn.
And it would be fun because Pacer, he likes the industrial genomics as well, so he'd get a taste of his own medicine. Sort of
the pioneer of this deck, a different iteration of this deck a few months ago, I guess.
Okay, so we got some ice back over R&D, and one of the things you'll see, Corey pitches a lot of agendas into archives, and he just says, at a certain point, I've got all the shocks in here, I've got Hokusai grid, come and get them.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is he's got one Jackson removed from the game right now. It is not uncommon to run into that archives and have him remove all 3 at once.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he's okay with that because now you've committed to that run that's going to deal, between 3 and 6 net damage or something absurd like that.
I was playing him yesterday with Max, and I keyholed probably, I think, 5 or 6. There was a couple of face-down agendas, but I knew he had Jackson, and if I ran through Crick, he puts Jackson back in, shuffles 3 agendas back in, and if I don't have enough to win on the spot, then I was probably going to die. And these are the kind of choices you've got to make.
Yeah, and I think it's tough because, we just don't see this deck a whole lot.
So Ashigaru, you foreshadowed it earlier, Josh, and, the Atman's at the right strength, so Ahmed's got that going for him, but clearly, Corey's going to be holding 5 cards in hand most of the time, so this is still pretty taxing ice for Ahmed. Katie's nice and loaded up over there.
Yeah, I think he's got out, an economic base, especially Katie Jones. You can't say she's underrated, right? She always gets you that constant flow of econ. So he's going to be able to afford this, which, you have to wonder, why isn't he trashing those hostile infrastructures?
Yeah, Melange is back online. Oh, drops the ELP.
Yeah, I mean, it's, and Corey just does this, and now you have to score. Now the pressure is on to score because you're spending 2 clicks to make a run, even on a remote server for a hostile infrastructure.
Yeah. And I think so now he's protecting the Ash that we saw earlier, so I think this is the end game scoring server.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see that Hades fragment dropped in there. If he still has it in hand. That and an NAPD, sorry folks, and 2 snares in hand. So Corey, pretty happy with that hand right now, I would say.
Yeah, and one of the things for people who've never played this ID before, I mean, you see that Sundew in the corner in the pad campaign. I mean, this is what is cool about the deck is that everybody says, well, Sundew works great in RP because they can't run it first. But you look at it here, Ahmed has left that on the board, rightly so, but you get to a point where you say, well, I'm not going to trash it, and I can't spend my whole turn, especially with an enhanced login protocol. I can't just chase after that just to cost the corp some money. So we've got, didn't see what he put down there. I thought he was trying to put an upgrade on R&D, but maybe
it might be a Caprice in there also to go with the Ash. I don't know how many Caprices we've seen trashed, because the Hades Shard and the NAPD are both still in hand. This could be a Fetal. He just wants Ahmed to take more damage.
Yeah. And I imagine he's got either the Hokusai or the Caprice on HQ. I didn't see what he put there earlier.
Now, here's the thing. Ahmed can afford to run into that and trash that Ash right now.
Yeah.
And so maybe he bites the bullet, loses some more of his hand size. But look at his deck. It's down to 3 cards.
Yeah.
So if he's not going to Levy now, then I don't think he can really afford
trying to look at his hand. Does he have the Levy in hand?
It is. It's the 3rd card, yeah. 2 and 3, he's going to run through Ashigaru. Breaks all 5.
Yep, so let's see what we
he's
find.
Accessing 2. And
all right, blanks.
So you got to think, oh, man, they're in archives now. Now what do I do, right?
Yeah. And again, I mean, it's not like personal evolution where you take damage off of stealing agendas, but at the same time, you know, Ahmed's seen enough cards go into archives. He knows there's one shock in there. He's played Corey enough to know that Hokusai is probably the upgrade waiting for him.
Yeah, I'm a little baffled that Ahmed hasn't considered the Levy yet.
Yeah.
I mean, that next blacklist is coming, right? We know Corey runs 2.
All right, so we've got Crick number 2. Okay, so putting it over R&D. Yeah. Get some more money.
Yeah, we still haven't seen the code gate breaker out, so I'm just going to drop, it looks like a snare.
Yeah, so what are we up to? I can't remember if it's 4 face downs at this point.
Oh, I think it's more than that at this point.
A little tough to see right now.
So Ahmed, did he just drop the baby down? Symmetrical Visage?
All right, so we got the Gordian Blade. So we've got our Breaker Suite substantially online. We don't have Lady, but Ottman is doing a great job neutralizing the the Cortex Lock and the Ashigaru. And I'm hoping it's Levy for his sake. There we go.
There it is, yeah.
All right. Corey probably sad to see that. But, yeah, I mean, at this point in the game, now that Ahmed's got the Levy going on, I mean, I think Corey's really got to think about how does he get through the rest of this game? How does he score out? I think the chances of him killing Ahmed now that he's got the Levy before he runs out of cards in his deck are pretty low. I know Corey does play a 54-card deck, which is something that's a little different. I think the, what's the name, Bloodlock deck on Netrunner DB that got popular, I think, very interesting idea in that, clearly if there's one identity where I think it makes a whole lot of sense, it's probably this one. You can see how grindy it is.
And it's an argument that I've had with both Corey and Pacer, who both sort of argued for 49 still being good.
Yeah.
And I think Corey has finally seen the light, 54. Yeah. I don't have a problem with it.
But I think if Ahmed wins this game, I think kind of holding on and keeping that Levy alive is going to be the most critical play of this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And really unfortunate for Corey not seeing another blacklist, not being able to bring it back.
So we have a 3-strength Crick because it's not installed on archives, so will cost Ahmed some money. Obviously, Ashigaru is still taxing, but Ahmed doing pretty well on the money front.
But at this point, you haven't seen those agendas in R&D. You have to assume it's either in HQ or he's leaving them in archives.
Yeah.
And maybe Ahmed's plan is just to mill Corey out.
I mean, honestly,
which I think isn't.
That is the most common way I win against this deck is just by holding on and reacting.
Yeah. Being able to play that Levy now means he's got more time than Corey.
And you see Corey puts out the blacklist. I mean, not very relevant at this point. Ahmed's set up, and there's nothing that's critical to play out of the heap at this point. But, okay, looks like Corey is going to start the score-out path. Not uncommon for him. Usually when he sees a certain number of cards left in deck, that's when he starts getting aggressive if he didn't find a scoring window before now. But we'll see if it makes a difference. We'll see if Ahmed's able to get the job done and either score off of R&D or whether he decides to challenge the remote.
So Ahmed breaking through, using the data sucker to end Ashigaru's reign over the R&D. And he'll access 2 cards again.
So nothing and...
Yeah, I think nothing. I think they're all...
Shock.
Yep, there
Number
it is.
3.
And so I think all of the agendas are either in Corey's hand or in archives, other than the one that's installed.
And what do you think? I know when we have Ahmed in here for the interview, I'd love to ask him kind of what's going through his mind. Is he looking to just outlast at this point, or is he not? Does he know that, or does he suspect that everything's in archives, and he just says, you know what, I'm not going to take the chance off of dying.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we can't fault him, right?
Oh, absolutely.
He's made a finals of Tulsa, and it seems like he's in the driver's seat of this game.
Yeah, I think Ahmed is firmly ahead because I don't think Corey has, he's got the NAPD scored out, but,
right.
I think.
But I think there was a point where, we weren't sure that Ahmed really had a direction in this game.
No, that's right.
And he's managed to pull one out of nowhere. So, really impressed to see that. Corey does, he gets that NAPD scored. So, we're 2-2 right now. He installs and presumably advances again. In fact, double advance. So maybe that Hades fragment, which is going to be really big if he can score it.
Yeah. Now the problem is going to be that Ahmed, he has money on Katie.
Yeah.
The Ash that is protecting, it's going to be expensive to
now
trash.
It's going to be very big.
But it is trashable.
And I think there is a Caprice there now, right?
Oh, nice.
So, I mean, we haven't seen that other one. I can't imagine it's the Hokusai grid. I have to assume that's what's on HQ.
All right. So we have the barrier breaker. Doesn't want to take a chance of what's in front.
Yeah. And he's maxed out on memory now, so he doesn't have to worry about the Cortex lock.
All right, he's going for it.
Yeah, he's just going to run the scoring server.
I like this play. I think if nothing else, Ash is not in and of itself going to stop him. Yes, he's going to take some damage, but it's not enough to be lethal at this point. But you do have to worry, if you're Ahmed, is that a fetal AI?
Yeah,
and he's going to take 2 off of the hostile infrastructures if he trashes Ash, and then 2 off fetal. You don't know. Maybe Corey's got a singleton Neurali MP or something like that.
Right. And so I think Corey deciding whether or not he's going to res.
Okay, let's see. It
looks like he's not resing the ice. He's deciding what he's going to res in the root. Oh, no, he will res. It is another Ashigaru. Okay. So not cheap. Even for the lady, that's going to be 3 counters off of her. So Ahmed really has to consider this.
Yeah, I don't know whether he'll go Ottman or Lady at this point.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. I forgot there was an Ottman at 4.
Yeah, but still, I mean,
it's
an interesting thought. I mean, again, Corey's probably rezzed all the ice he's going to res in this game. So if you're going to use Lady, I mean, it seems like a perfectly reasonable time to do it, to be honest, even though that is 3/4 of a Lady to get through this Ashigaru.
And if he wants to save the money, he knows there's a Caprice. He has to assume, or he knows it's an Ash, right?
Yeah.
So
you do have to protect
the
credit count right now.
So maybe just use the data sucker and 3 Lady counters to get through, and then hope you win the side game.
Yeah, I agree with this play. You know that there's probably an Ash there, and you've got to conserve credits at this point.
So what do you bid here, as both Corey and Ahmed?
Oh, gosh.
I think Corey can afford to bid 1.
I feel like
2.
Corey goes 2, Ahmed goes 1.
Yeah.
There we go. And it's so demoralizing because you have to get through Caprice, and then you get to trash Ash for some ungodly amount.
Yeah, well, and even then, I don't know that he can.
Yeah.
If Corey's equal on money, I don't think Ahmed can't trash that.
And one of the things I forgot about earlier, hostile infrastructure, you've still got it out, and the reality of it is he would have to trash Caprice 2 cards, Ash 2 cards, and if it's fetal, and again, these are the ridiculous decisions you get to make against Genomics.
So I think Ahmed, again, stuck in this place where he has to make this decision. If that is the Hades fragment, and it appears to be, based on what I'm seeing in Corey's hand, that's huge for Corey. That prolongs the game for him, maybe just long enough to score those last 2
points. I like
this
HQ run a lot because you have the rezzed Caprice at this point. If this is Caprice there, again, it's unique, so it will trash the one that's on the scoring server. So I like the pressure on HQ at this point.
Oh, it's an Ash.
Okay.
Interesting. And he doesn't res it.
No res.
Now, would you res it there, even if you're just leaving that trace at base strength?
I think I res. Yeah.
Because you're still costing him money, right?
That's really interesting. I mean, it's 2.
Yeah, of course, he knows what's in his hand, right? I think there might be an NAPD, but otherwise I think it's just, snares. It's just snares.
Now we see the method behind the madness, I suppose.
So he's perfectly happy to let Ahmed take a pretty good chance at accessing a snare.
And again, now here's the pressure. He can't go back to that scoring remote with that few cards in his hand.
Not at all.
All right. I don't know that I love that play. I mean, the same old thing is there really anything so threatening?
Especially when that's a Hades. I'm
the Katie I like.
Fragment.
The Katie trash I like.
That's
the same old
smart.
thing, I don't know that there was enough in there to really threaten. I think I might have just trashed Katie and maybe Symmetrical Visage and then called it a day. Yeah, the Katie trash may be very relevant. Again, I mean, Ahmed, he's drawn through a lot of his deck. His cards are life points at this point. So, I mean, I think Katie is a very relevant trash. Sure Gamble's a nice draw. But again, I mean, Ahmed, he's got one Levy in the deck.
Yeah.
He only got so many cards left to beat Corey.
Yeah, in fact, they just realized that snare was not something Ahmed could afford to trash.
You want to pay 8 to trash that snare?
And 2 net damage with your one card left in hand, right? So that's going back into Corey's hand, which is, really relevant. Because Ahmed's got to remember now that, okay, there's at least one snare in there.
This is the shenanigans that Industrial Genomics presents. Yeah, and I think, he does find one. Oh, side game. All right, here we go. This may be Ahmed's best shot to score another one without going back into the fun that it clearly was HQ.
And, that makes a big difference because then you find an NAPD, you find a Fetal, you win.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because we know Corey's got a fistful of agendas.
Right.
All right, what are we bidding? 2-1 again, right?
Yeah. Ahmed, my fellow compatriot of never being able to win a side game. I feel for you, man. It's rough.
Yeah, this Katie trash is rough because you look at it. He's going back. I think this is the right play. I mean, you found an agenda. You know it's there. You may as well go after it because going into HQ is not a fun place to be right now.
Right.
Oh, wow, got it. That's big.
And that means the LP is gone now.
Yeah, ELP goes down, and we're on match point.
Did they take that into account when he ran this turn?
That is a fabulous question.
I don't know if he's been running the right number of clicks, but
that is a fabulous question. All right, so we did take it into account. We can't see all the clicks tracked.
It's hard to keep track of.
Okay, just trying to keep everybody honest here. Yeah, okay.
So we're
we are good. So we're on match point here on Ahmed's side. So Corey, he's got the install advance in his scoring remote. So, I think all of the agendas, at least as far as I can see, just kind of casually counting, are either in archives. I didn't
see any in hand. I see a hedge fund, 2 snares, 2 shot or a shock, something. I think maybe a pad or a melange.
And I think what Corey can do, I mean, he can certainly Jackson them back in when he's ready to draw them, and I think that's a common strategy. But
that being said, he's got 1 Jackson on board right now.
Yeah.
So if Ahmed assumes the same, now we can account for 4, so there are maybe at most 5 in the archives, right?
That is a Jinteki player's hand if I've ever seen it. Snare, snare, shock.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, but if Ahmed just runs archives and hits 4 agendas, the game's over.
Yep. And I just want to point out, I mean, the credit count on Corey's side. Corey, I don't think his click for credits hardly at all, but the Sundew and Pad campaign, this has done work.
Well, in Melange, he's used Melange, I think, twice.
He's used it a couple of times, but I think just having that threat out there, he's very well aware that he can hit it when he needs it.
Yeah, because he knows Ahmed can't afford to trash it. Okay, so Corey installs in a new remote. I think we have to assume that's either I think we have to assume that's the next Jackson.
Yeah, I saw it was the Jackson.
Which I think sort of seals it. But because if Ahmed had run archives that previous turn, that might have been game.
Yeah. So we've got, I mean, Ahmed's certainly got enough cards left in deck to be able to get this done.
And unfortunately, I think he's going to run archives now.
Yeah.
Which
I don't know that he's going to like what's waiting for him, but I also don't know how many agendas. I think he may be counting on the fact that Corey's just pitched so many in archives. Maybe he's put more than Jackson's can handle.
I mean, there's got to be at most 5, right?
Yeah.
Because there's 1 in a scoring server. There are 3 scored. So. Could be running 8 or 9 total agendas.
Yeah, he's running 9 in this
right,
deck,
yeah,
even though it's 54 cards.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot that we were talking about a 54-card deck. So, still running 9.
All right, so Hokusai goes out. We're going to count up how many shocks are waiting for him after we Jackson out.
Oh, wow. Only 1 Jackson pop currently.
All right, so I think we go. Yeah, we got a lot.
Wow,
so
that is not a Hades that is sitting down there in that scoring server. The Hades is in archives.
So we're popping both Jacksons.
Yeah,
I think this is going to be enough to clear out.
Yeah, if Ahmed had just run the previous turn, that's rough.
See, now here's the problem, though. Again, I mean, he's going to shuffle all agendas back into R&D.
And now Ahmed's taking 4 net damage.
But then you've got to imagine that Ahmed, I mean, he's set up for a next turn where, okay, Crick he can certainly deal with. I can't remember what the ice on top of Crick is in R&D, but you're making a pretty high percentage run if you've got an R&D interface and he shuffled 6 agendas back into the deck.
Right. So it looks like Corey's thinking about taking the Ashigaru back, or maybe that was a Tsurugi. You have to assume Ashigaru.
Well, this thing needs probably a pretty healthy shuffle, but I don't know that it's exactly going to matter. So we're going to count some shocks and Hokusai damage, and so there goes the hand.
So yeah, Ahmed discovering why IG is so painful to run against. And so at this point, you can't really afford to run R&D, even though you know there's a really good chance of you scoring. Or do you? Do you just?
I think he's going to draw back up. Get some cards in hand. Yeah, so they're just making sure to sequence this right off of the each trigger. So yeah, draw back up, and I think next turn, I'm going for R&D and trying to close the game out.
Right.
And he's got a Diesel, that'll be nice. Diesel, click 1.
So Corey mandatories into a Hokusai, so not an agenda. That's probably actually bad for him. He probably wanted to draw an agenda there. That being said, Hokusai he can drop on R&D. Potentially saves him. The problem is if he draws again, he might be looking for the next Caprice. I don't know if we saw it. We might have seen it in archives already.
All right, so I think Hokusai is going down over R&D. Seems like a reasonable play. If Ahmed hits the Fetal and he's not ready for it, or if there's a damage ice over R&D, I mean, that may be Corey's best line, because I just don't know if he can score out at this point.
Yeah. So Ahmed draws 3. 4. Oh, no, Diesel.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Diesel.
Yep.
I completely missed that card. I'm sorry. So, yeah, he's going to
Tsurugi.
draw for Diesel and then run an R&D. So he will break both R&D and Crick.
Res Hokusai.
He will take 1 net damage.
Yeah, and I've got to imagine that he pulls something off of seeing 2 cards here.
Wow, he didn't Maker's Eye.
All right.
It's probably smart.
All right, we got there.
It. But he wants to see. Yeah. See.
That is what happens when you put 6 agendas left in your deck, folks. Yep, that's a decent density. But very good game.
Yeah, it seemed sort of inevitable at that point, but you got to give Ahmed credit.
Yeah, very patient. Got the Levy at the right time when he needed it.
He seemed behind. He had 2 breakers in the bin, and he came back